Back to Unleashing Your Psychic Abilities.
Welcome back to Unleashing Your Psychic Abilities. I'm here today with David Stipes, and we are talking about the different degrees of clairsentience. I just finished up a story of what had happened with my son and I on the way home from a store where we were able to avoid an accident. And in this story, I think, is a really good lesson on many different varying degrees of clairsentience. The first thing on the clairsentience was that I noticed that my ears were itching, and I think a lot of times we've got different physical manifestations that we're feeling something, either sensing it through emotions, or in this case physical feeling, where I had to rub my ear, and it was an acknowledgement. I needed to learn to respond to that, and I've learned in my own psychic dictionary that usually means that a spirit guide is trying to talk to me. So in that case, the beginning of the sensing was the actual physical sensing that I needed to pay attention to something. The next part was the acknowledgement that the guides were trying to communicate with me. So it was almost like this little infusion of knowledge. I understood and recognized that there was information for me from another dimension that I needed to listen to. Then it was the power of quieting the mind. Now, at first I didn't quiet the mind, and because I didn't take that little moment to do that, then I was again reminded that I needed to listen and to be very careful. So as we turned the radio off and I just kind of relaxed and stepped back so that I could receive the information, that was when I was able to get the information that we needed to be protected, and just kind of infused again with that knowledge of turn right, turn right, turn right. Now with my son, he was able to sense right away that something was wrong with that intersection, and the way of sensing that he did was simply he felt uncomfortable. He felt sick inside. It was just an ugly feeling of almost a little bit of anxiety and fear as he entered into the intersection. And the recognition of that was another part of sensing. The bodily pain that he began to feel, and as soon as he felt it, of course I started feeling it a little bit differently though. He felt it more in his right shoulder, and I felt the impact against the chest and saw the airbag in my mind. And by feeling these physical feelings, we could have been just driving down the road and all of a sudden kind of both of us felt a little sick. But because we were more aware that, whoa, this isn't our bodies, there should be no reason for this pain in my shoulder or the sick in my stomach, we were able to recognize that, okay, this wasn't coming from us. And so what does this link to? And David.
One of the thoughts that comes to mind here is you were in a physical experience with your son, and yet there was an infusion of information, or there was guidance given from another level of experience, another realm, whether you call it God, call it cosmic source, whatever, higher self, guides. But nevertheless, you and your son had a transcendent or a psychic experience of trying to protect you. And based on the readings that I've seen and the material from the Casey things, this is a reflection in these psychic moments when we have guidance. These are a reflection of what used to be our natural state long before we became totally enmeshed in the physical bodies. So what we're trying to do now is to make or reconnect with spirit. And when mankind first was involved in the earth, my understanding is we had constant contact with spirit. That's how so much information was given, how people learned a lot of things about foods and all kinds of things in this physical realm. So I think we're trying to rediscover it, and it's a hint of what we used to be.
I love that. I absolutely agree with that. I know that in my own mind's eye, that as we become more sensitive to this, we're so used to just dealing with one another on the talking realm, and we watch talking, we watch body language, and we just kind of have taken that to be, okay, this is our communication here. And when I began to learn how to telepathically talk to somebody and kind of enter their energy field and be able to sense and feel and have pictures and understand them, the clarity of the information being sent to me was just to perfection simply because we were of heart, mind, and soul together, and so there wasn't a misunderstanding of that information. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about, is becoming more sensitive to the fact that even though we're here on Earth, we still have access to all of that sensing ability, which ties us into a much higher form of communication.
One of the things that really has impressed me about you, Holly, is that you are one of the few people that I talk to that are psychic that actually recognizes and consciously uses different modalities to receive information, where at times a person might block you with thought forms. You're able to just go right around it to a higher source and help them anyway, even though they're trying to put up a false image to you. And it's been really impressive to watch you do that. And I think that I would encourage anybody who is trying to work with these things, work with growing psychically, to explore numerology, symbology, astrology, tarot, all of these different things, as well as the conscious choices of clairaudience, clairsentience, and those things.
Well, thank you, David. I've noticed that, and I think this is an important point to make too, that when we are picking up information from someone else, I have had people come to me and say, "Oh, I don't want anybody reading my thoughts." Well, that's an easy thing to do. You just simply don't want anybody reading your thoughts, and so it can be averted. Morally and ethically, I would never go in and read someone's thoughts or feelings or heart without permission. I absolutely disagree with that. Now, in the aura field, whatever they're putting out in their aura field, that's out for everyone to see, and so I do pick up a lot of information there, but I would never pass that boundary there unless I had permission for it. And I think it all is about becoming more spiritually sensitized. I don't know much about astrology or numerology. I've read just a little bit about it, but to be honest, probably couldn't do it if I tried right now. It's definitely something that I want to learn. Yeah,
I wanted to just say that I was not in any way implying that we should be going out trying to do this stuff for people who are not giving us permission. I'm talking about like with my own case and some of the things I've experienced where clients come in and I'm trying to do a life seal reading for them, and I don't get the imagery. So then I go into a laying on of hands thing, like I touch their forehead, or I start trying to see what do I feel about the person, what feelings am I getting, as opposed to what images am I getting. And this was all all in response to the client coming and asking for help, because sometimes people will put up blocks to create or perpetuate a fallacy or a self-image that isn't true for them, and then looking at the reality behind that can be more helpful. And again, it's only when they come and ask for the help, and it's not to be an intrusion on somebody I just happen to run across or meet.
Very good. Another thing I've learned too in my different readings and in trying to help people psychically is that they may want the gifts, but maybe they haven't done the footwork behind it in order to receive the gifts. A lot of times I'll have people come to me and want the name of their spirit guide, or they may just seriously want to just see things in their mind and have this clairvoyance so clear to them, and they're frustrated or clairaudience. They want to hear right away. And it's really a process of beginning to learn to the subtleties of the energy, the subtleties of the way we connect spiritually, the way we connect energetically, the physical sensations around us, the emotions. When we learn to become more sensitized to those things, it just automatically happens. And I know that our learning process of developing our psychic abilities starts by the basics. And you don't just jump right into the middle of doing a mediumship. Although you may have mediumship experiences, the actual process of being a medium for someone, specifically or professionally put forward, there is a little bit of preparation process and an understanding of how those vibrations and frequencies actually work. So I think it does come back to the recognition of those subtleties and the combination of ways to bring forth that information.
And one of the things that comes to mind here in this discussion, there are people who are born with these abilities, from past lives or however, they've been given that gift. But these gifts, many of them can be learned. You can be trained. You can acquire them. But then it goes back to some questions that I bring up a lot in our meetings and things like that is, what is the purpose? What is the ideal for doing this? If it is to have a parlor trick, or if it's to learn to try to pull up numbers for the lottery or something, that's not a very high spiritual ideal. The reason, it took me a long time to be able to learn to do some of these things, but I directly attribute it to my work in the Edgar Cayce material in the Search for God study groups, which is focused upon spiritual growth. And the Cayce readings say that psychic experiences is an outgrowth or a product of spiritual growth. It is a consequence of that. You don't go in and try to blow open these psychic centers or spiritual centers without paying a price unless you do the groundwork of it. You need to be in a place where you're strong enough to work with this without going to self-aggrandizement, as Cayce calls it, or ego trips.
You're right. The intention, I think, is such an important part of all of this, because if your intention is not pure, or you're not having the understanding of the lessons or the rules along with it and how to process the information, it can actually end up to be somewhat of a frightening experience, which is the case with many empaths. We're going to return and talk a little bit about what empaths go through and the process of how to be able to process the information, and we will be back shortly.